what are we talking about? Like, what's
the spiritual journey.
the spiritual journey? Okay, very nice. Hello, Lucas. I don't think you can see me.
Hello. How are you guys doing?
We're doing pretty well. There's John over there.
How?
Alright.
Hi, Jonathan.
Okay.
Vulcan greeting.
So, yeah.
Yes.
Live long and prosper.
And be rational.
Irrational.
Yeah, that's what we're going
No,
to do
it's
today,
rational.
actually, is be as rational as we possibly can. So stop smiling, please.
Okay, I have to be objective about this. Hold on.
Yeah, seriously. We want real scientific,
There's no pants on.
scientific, objective evidence is all that we're going to admit today. So.
Okay.
Oh, I think that leaves out pretty much everything. Hold on. Okay.
Yeah.
No, we're going to have to actually forget about that whole idea. The two things that I wanted to talk about were, you know, your stories and your understandings of, you know, what is called the spiritual path, the spiritual journey.
Yeah.
And, you know, how you sort of found yourself in the situation you're in now. And I also wanted to talk about what role that psychedelics may have played in that, because I know you went to Peru and tried ayahuasca, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure that's in some way related to the spiritual journey as you've experienced it, but what would you say got you started, if there was a start? Was there a moment when you said, something is true that I didn't quite see before, but now I can at least intuit the possibility of that?
Yeah, I really think so. It all pretty much started in 2006 when I got pretty much like my introductory to all this stuff was conspiracy theories, and then that messed up my brain completely for a while, where I just got completely in fear and engrossed in all that. So after I got out of that stuff, I started to kind of transition into more Taoism and stuff like that. And that got me into quantum physics, you know, contemporary quantum physics theory and stuff like that. So yeah, that was my time there, and it made me realize a lot, especially in 2007 when I was going through that phase, that transition, that I had a lot more realizing about myself than I thought, or I needed to previously. Because before I was just like, you know, screw life. I don't care. You know, we're all just gonna die anyways, and this very like pessimistic view of life.
So the conspiracy worldview, I guess, was that like you were thinking that maybe 9/11 was an inside job, or that some, you know, Illuminati organization was in charge of the economy and everything, or what sorts of conspiracies do you think?
Yeah, that was pretty much what I was believing. Like, I thought the Illuminati was actually at the time too. I was a very hardcore Christian, so if you can imagine tying those two things together, it creates like the ultimate pessimism or the ultimate extremism in any case. Like there's like I was all like, okay, the rapture is going to happen. I'm going to be raptured and go to heaven. Then the Illuminati is going to, you know, they're going to put martial law on earth. And so like I remember saying to my dad one day, I was like, yeah, I don't have a future. I don't like my life, you know.
Well,
so it was.
I almost think the Christian religion. I mean, I was raised Christian. Did you have any sort of religious?
It was more agnostic, and it's just in my household.
So there was no like going to church or anything.
No. Only on weekends when we'd visit a family that was very
and they would
fundamental.
You go to church with them to sort of look like
to fit in. I didn't want to. I would like fight tooth and nail because I was so used to this agnostic lifestyle. Like, I don't know, you don't have to go to church. You know, I'm like, yes, and watch Sunday cartoons or whatever.
Yeah. So well, I was more like Lucas. Maybe not as quite as intense. I didn't have to go to church, but my mom every Sunday would wake me up and say, "Let's go, let's go." If I just laid in bed, she'd be like, "Next Sunday, you have to." I was like, "All right, fine." But so I could weasel my way out of it, but you know, it was still a part of my upbringing, and it seems like, you know, the archetype of the rapture and that sort of experience, and really taking that psychologically seriously, I think is just a function of having been raised in the Christian environment where that's the story you're told, you know.
Yeah.
And it almost seems like it's a very powerful spiritual technology that's not being used consciously. That it's brainwashing people instead of making them aware of, what might the real meaning of rapture be, or apocalypse, or Armageddon. If you think about it in a psychological way, it's a self-revelation, right? Where your ego dies and you are reborn. I mean, I think there's a deeper meaning to the Christian story that could be very as conducive as the Eastern methods of enlightenment.
You're talking about a rebirth or a death of an ego, which can be associated with this westernized conception of enlightenment, and that word has been interwoven with spirituality these days, I think, and I think you think that's accurate too, Luke. But what do you think? You mentioned you were a Christian before, and maybe even you could go as far to say religious, but that's to be distinct from a spiritual worldview, which you seem to project today. Can you define the difference in your view, and what kind of process happened? Was it like more of an evolution type of process? I mean, how was it? How did it unfold for you? What's the difference? Can you, speak about that?
All right. Yeah. I'm like hearing it really big on your side, and it's just kind of weird hearing it and talking. I don't know.
All right.
Okay. Yeah, it's good now.
Okay. Turn it down a little bit.
Yeah. So basically, I guess a religious way of thinking would just be it was more or less repetition over actual thinking about something, and then spirituality is kind of making that other half of the realization. So it's like combining your thinking with the process of you doing something or whatever you do. So it's kind of like fully integrating everything. And back when I was religious, I pretty much didn't think about anything. I would just blindly go, and my level of consciousness was very low. It was just singing and not questioning anything, not even trying to think about things, giving programmed responses. And eventually, something felt really wrong about that. So I started to break off into the more, into the finding of myself and finding a spiritual sense to myself.
Would you say it's safe to say that another distinction is spiritual seems to be there's a qualitative depth towards spirituality as opposed to religiality or a religious type of worldview, because you say there's not much thinking going on from your experience of a religious worldview compared to a spiritual worldview. So,
well, Lucas, you said there's a lot of repetition, and I thought that's a really interesting way of looking at what ritual and even dogmatic belief systems are. You just keep repeating the same pattern as it has been laid down in this book that's 2,000 years old. But the spiritual path, on the other hand, seems you have to create now instead of repeat what has happened already. So it's kind of maybe a call to be more authentic
and
about your religion.
Yeah, authentic.
Practice,
more participatory in the process of adding and contributing to a philosophy, right? Isn't that spirituality and philosophy very closely related?
Very.
I mean, what's your take on philosophy from a spiritual perspective? Do you think they go hand in hand? I mean, are you more attracted to philosophy now that you have adopted a spiritual stance, Lucas?
I'd say yes. Philosophy was a good, I still use different terms, but what I find is me not getting more into philosophy and more into, I guess, like a deeper oneness of things, kind of more or less nowadays it's all realizations. And I still look up philosophical names and different concepts and things, but it's mainly just making these realizations, especially since I just moved out of my house and I'm trying to develop a way of supporting myself financially. So it's coming down to more the survival mechanisms right now, and these really intense realizations and stuff. So
it seems like the philosophy or anything intellectual like that, it's more about theory, more about the realm of ideas, and it doesn't necessarily have. It may, but it doesn't necessarily have anything to tell you about how to realize things like in the real world, right? So
Yeah.
you gotta somehow balance your desire to understand in theory with your desire to actually affect the world.
Hey.